Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer Page, a Learning Experience Designer with LSU Online. I'm joined by Dr. Mark Verrett, an instructor in the E.J. Orso College of Business and IT Manager at the Center for Analytics and Research in Transportation Safety at LSU. Today, we're going to talk about our design collaboration for General Business 3304, Visual Analytics. Dr. Verrett, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So let's start with an overview of your course. Could you tell us a bit about visual analytics and your students?
So the students are non-traditional and they're not technical. So the course had to be developed to give them the information without being overwhelming. So that's how we approach the course, and that's how we look to design it. Data analytics is prevalent everywhere in every business and in every industry. So I think this would be good for them to know, no matter what position they have, to be able to understand it or to be able to be involved in the generation of the analytics.
So before we even started developing the course, you mentioned that you wanted students to understand the relevance and real-world application of data analysis. Why was this approach important to you?
Well, I wanted to make it to where it was something relevant to them. Typically, you have, test data sets and other things to look at certain concepts. So within this course, and along with the in-person course that I teach, I try to include, real-world data sets. And I also try to involve the students to have them choose data and areas that are familiar to them. So that was kind of the challenge in an online course, is how do you bring some of that individuality and the personal experience together with, with something that's not necessarily full-time instructor-led. So that was one of the challenges, but I think that we did well in succeeding in doing that.
Yeah, I think we came up with some very creative solutions. One of the crucial workforce skills that the course focused on was storytelling with data. Could you tell us what data storytelling is and how students can use that skill in their careers?
So storytelling it's a specific topic, or just a specific notion of kind of walking the user through a data analysis. And there's specific, especially in Tableau, there's a type of visualization which is called creating a story. And it's almost like a presentation type application of the tool, to where you kind of say, well, here's a broad term or broad idea, and you kind of narrow it down or walk them down a path of thought. The way that I've included that in this course is that it's more of trying to get the student to understand that they need to communicate the data and the analysis to the user. Because if this is something that you're, as a data analyst, that you're developing and you're looking at data to build insights, that's something that may not be directly communicated. They may not have, the user may not have an understanding that you have, being intimate with the data. So the storytelling, I kind of generalize it more in terms of remember your audience and kind of keep them in mind as you're going through your analysis. Because at the end of the day, this isn't an IT application. You have a business user or a business purpose for analyzing data. You want data-driven decisions, and they're going to use this analysis or this tool, dashboard, what have you, to make those decisions.
So even students whose career title isn't data analyst are going to use this information.
Oh, absolutely. So this would also not, only create data analysts, but also consumers that would, if they're working with an analyst, if they have a business role, finance, even if they're, a line manager or whatever, understanding, the data and understanding how to use it to make those decisions is just as important, as developing it in the first place. So having these basic skills, I think benefits, even though, that they're general business, it gives them those tools, those basic tools, to where they can decide, I'd like to pursue a career as an analyst and work more with data, or I'm glad I understand this now as I go into my career, whatever it may be, I'll understand how to utilize these tools.
Yeah, really useful. So you mentioned that students in the course have varying degrees of familiarity with technology and with analytics approaches specifically. So, how did you scaffold the concepts to accommodate those varying entry points?
Well, and that's always a balancing act, in developing any course, is trying to hit that middle point, without being over the heads of those that are just coming in and losing interest of those that already have some of those skills. So I think we did pretty well in balancing that. And kind of the approach was, building blocks. So we really wanted to say, well, here's how you do, how do you utilize the tool? And then get them comfortable with saying, well, yes, I can pull data in, I can, corroborate data, I can merge data, I can create these charts, and then start going, okay, well, here's why you're doing that. Here's why we pulled this data in and created this type of chart. Now here's how you go forward with the analysis and bringing more context to it. So it's really trying to start off with the building blocks and then kind of move up, which is difficult, in a semester, but especially in a 5-week, 7-module course to try to do that. But again, I think we hit a good balance as we collaborated on this course.
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about how the students learn to tell stories with data. Could you tell us about how the course models this skill set and then how students started telling their own data stories?
Again, another challenge on an online course where the students they don't have that interactivity even, with them among their peers. So we tried to create it to where, there would be group projects or group activities to where they can interact and get some of those skills of having their understandings, I wouldn't say challenged, but giving critical input to each other, constructive criticism. So one of the ways that we did that again was we kind of stepwise. The first activity was to analyze some already built dashboards, to go look at, and then kind of define, get their interpretation. What is the meaning? Why was this built? And kind of get their ideas. And then we moved into, okay, well, you pick your own data, wherever it may come from, and then you build your dashboard, and then you kind of critique each other in the forum. And I think what that does is that allows them, having they're their own domain expert, if they pick the data, if it's something they're interested in. We had one student, again, and this is the first go around of this particular course, but in my undergraduate course, I had a student that had a family business in a construction company. She used that data. She was very interested. She brought it back to, her family, and they said, oh, wow, we didn't, it's just some interesting insights. What they did with it, I don't know, but that was something that she relayed to me, and, I thought that was very interesting. So that those types of things, I think, instill more into the student than giving them a generic data set that they have no relevancy to. Everybody understands sales and finance, but at this point, if they have something that they're interested in, I think it brings them out more and more desire to learn.
Right. Well, and you also wanted to emphasize developing that constructive criticism, the meaningful, actionable feedback for colleagues. So how would a student who has a potential career in data analytics be able to use this skill?
So again, not just in the development, but if they're looking at it critically and they're saying, this is what that was meant and this is how I would use it. So as an analyst, you need to be on both sides. You need to understand how your user is going to use it, or your stakeholders, how they're going to utilize that tool, but when you develop it. So you kind of have to be on both sides. So I think if they're just on that stakeholder side, it brings tremendous value because now they understand what goes into it, and then they could work better with an analyst if they're not the analyst.
Before we close, let's talk a little bit about your experience developing the course for LSU Online. So you mentioned some of the concerns you had before developing the course. Were there any other concerns or issues you may have been thinking about before adapting this course for 100% online delivery?
The main concern that I had was, how to bring that interactivity with the students, because in class, I like to give them activities that they collaborate on. because that's how, I've talked with people in industry, and I'm a professional in this industry as well. So collaboration and communication is important. So I was kind of concerned about how we would integrate that into an online course where the students really never interact with each other. And I think having these stepwise modules to where there are opportunities for them to interact, I think was important. And I think we'll see, but I think that they should allow for sufficient interactivity as it goes along, and hopefully reach the goals that we set out.
I think it will. So could you tell us how your course benefited from working with a learning experience designer?
I don't think I could have done near the quality, without your help. And as we went through things, I had questions or things that I wouldn't have thought of in terms of interactivity with the students, and some of the materials that I brought with me from another class or just that I introduced to this course that I wouldn't have created in a way that you did. Some of the specifics, like the H5 interactivity, to where it allows the student to walk through and it kind of brings more of a multimedia feel. I thought that was excellent. And some of the things that, I had questions on, that you helped me with, that I was able to even bring to my in-person class. So I had a great deal of improvements, and I thought it brought a lot. I thought working with you helped me better my teaching in the other classes as well. So the only negative that I have was that I kind of fell behind, in terms of timelines. But I mean, you worked with me, and we got through it, and we made everything pretty much on time. And as I said, I appreciated that back and forth. And as I said, I'd do it again, and we are doing it again. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you had a good experience. I also enjoyed that project. So thinking about your perceptions before beginning the course design process, and then after, now that we've completed your course, was there anything that surprised you?
Well, what I was really surprised was by the quick turnaround. So like I said, I would give you a Word document, and it would have some of the things that I would want to cover, and the next day you would come back with a video or an interactive assignment or an activity for the students that, I wouldn't have thought of in that way. So the quick turnaround and the quality that you returned, wouldn't say after working with you a while was not surprising, but, I was just very impressed, and I thought it was, very professional, and, everything went pretty smooth as far as my experience.
Well, we do try to provide excellent customer service. What would you tell a faculty member who's on the fence about designing a course for LSU Online?
I would say give it a try. That said, I don't necessarily say that I was on the fence. I was just unfamiliar with it. But I found nothing but benefit in terms of my experience, and I'm looking forward to the next one that we're working on in the next few weeks. Yeah, I would just say, do it.
Thank you so much for the perspective and the advice. I also loved working with you, and I'm looking forward to our next collaboration. So thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you.